Hello and welcome back to One-on-One. I'm Martin False, and what a guest we have lined up for you today. He comes from a simple background, but when you meet our guest today, you're going to understand that not only was he a hard worker, he was a pretty good businessman. And he's had his hands in several businesses along the way, grew up down the bayou, and we're going to hear his story when we come back from the break right here on One-on-One. One-on-One is brought to you by the Law Office of Waits and Downer. Are your products in the big chain stores?
Yes, now we in Rouse's and Canada's, and I'm in some of the Piggly Wigglies, also throughout the state, Super One stores in the western part of the state, Circle K's. We have a wide variety of stores that we service, and we started with one truck, and now we had 6 trucks. When me and my wife took over the business, we had to make sure the vendors was going to sell us product, get, a relationship going with the customer base and the vendor base.
You had to have stuff to sell.
And have stuff to sell. Yeah. So when we was doing that, I didn't hire anybody. I put my sister-in-law was running the shrimp plant, but I was doing the sales. So me and my wife got on the truck to go and learn the business. Being in the distribution business, customers want new things. Mm-hmm. So my wife, several years ago, she was on the internet looking, and then my granddaughter came to the house one day. She's but 10 years old, and she tells Mama, she said, Mama, look at this. And she said, what? She said, just look at it. She said, y'all need to have this on your route trucks. And it was freeze-dried candy. And so my wife started doing research on it. Next thing you know, we in the freeze-dried manufacturing business. And,
that's a great story.
And we started with one machine, and then business grew, and now we had 9 machines that we operate, and that business has 6 employees that work on it every day, and we pack anywhere between 200 to 300 bags of candy.
I saw the freeze-dried candy in the store.
Right.
And I saw these in the store before. Just to let the audience know, Lanyap Cajun Farm, this is a pickled quail egg. This is a spicy pickled okra.
Right.
And this is some more pickled eggs. Then you have the spicy pickled green beans. And then you have the wild American shrimp, pickled shrimp. And then you have the hot and spicy pickled quail eggs, and I think that was the first one I bought. And I'm not a real spicy person,
right?
But I never forget, I bought it at Tommy's place, a Civic Stop.
Right.
And I got home, and I put it in a bowl, and I took a bite, and ooh, like a foghorn went off. That was hot, so I had to sort of taper it down, but people love that hot.
Oh, yeah.
They would eat. But I would make spaghetti.
Right.
And I'd pour it on the spaghetti. And it made a tasty dish, but you were telling me y'all used a little more ingenuity at a wildlife and fisheries convention?
Correct, right.
What happened there?
Well, I brought some eggs to have something to eat there for our commissioners that we were having. So we were eating, they opened up the jars. They love quail eggs, so they eat in the jars. And so they ate all 12 jars that we had. So in the evening, they said, well, what are we going to do with this juice of it, right there? So they ended up finding some vodka, and they started making Bloody Mary mixes, and they ended up making Bloody Mary mixes with all the 12 jars of juices. And then they came back to me the next day, and they said, look, you might want to be thinking about adding a little tube of vodka on the side of these quail eggs and shrimp right here. This sauce that you put together is pretty damn good with vodka.
Disclaimer, best if bought with vodka.
Right, that's it. It's something that we, may tinker with, we may not.
Now, I'm a cheat. I don't normally read on this show, but there's so many things you're involved in.
Right.
By the Large Hunting Club, Lanyap Farms, of course.
Right.
Terrebonne and Lafourche Bayou Blue Fire District Board member, which you just appeared on HTV to pass that amendment.
Right.
Chairman of the board.
Right.
Louisiana Shrimp Task Force Shrimp Processor Advisory Panel member. Terrebonne Parish Port Commission Vice President. Terrebonne Parish Recreation District Number 7 Board member. Louisiana Seafood Promotion and Marketing Board member. Louisiana Shrimp Association Board of Director and past President. American Shrimp Processors Association Board of Directors and past President. Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries Commissioner. Terrebonne Sportsman League member, and Knights of Columbus member, 1979. How do you find time to do all this and run all your businesses? Are you Superman?
I don't know. My wife keeps on telling me, she said, you got eyes of a horse, right there. Because I get more and more involved with different organizations and try to keep track of everything. But, that's my commitment to the public. My work ethic is one passion, but to go ahead and deliver to the public of what we have is another, passion.
Do you know anybody that works harder than you?
No. I'm not going to say I don't.
You're a hard worker.
But I put in at least 14 to 16 hours a day, right there of work. With all these organizations right there, I run the business, and then thank God for a cell phone today, because I'm able to put all my contacts and everything, and, we're able to do business, conduct business on.
Yeah, but you're old school. You had to morph into the phones.
That's right, I did. I'm not one to carry a laptop with me everywhere I go, so I use my phone.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
Sometimes the simple is better. And what I learned down the bayous of Terrebonne and Lafourche, I used to go sell TV contracts for commercials.
Correct.
Kind of different people. When I get into inner city parts, they want the paper, they want the contract. When I get in the bayou, handshake.
Yeah, yeah.
And at first, when I'm a young man going to do that, I'm going, I don't have a paper trail. You don't need a paper trail. That handshake is golden.
That was the golden ticket right there.
Yeah.
If you got the handshake on it, you knew that you had a deal. We still do handshake deals, today. My latest venture is opening up 2 RV parks in Terrebonne Parish. And this morning I got a phone call, this guy from Mississippi. Look, I'm gonna be at your place on Sunday. What am I gonna need to do? I said, you don't need to do nothing. Just bring your camper, tie you into it, and I'll meet you on. He said, well, I can pay it over the phone. I said, yeah. I said, here, I told Chris to take the man's information, right there. So everything is kind of done still on a handshake, and I guess my reputation, people know me enough, where,
But you're a very trusting person, but I'm sure over the years you've had people that didn't pay their bills.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I could retire on the money that people owe me, today. And all you do is wake up in the morning and say, look, that's a loss. Let's go make some more money, right there. And that's all you can really do, with it. You can hire the attorneys or do whatever, but you may not get anything out of that particular issue, and I've had lots of people, claim and owe me money and distrusting or whatever. And, everybody runs their business their own way, right there. And I don't blame, one person. I just got to be more protective, especially at my age now, that we don't take losses.
You don't act like you have any age on you. You got energy.
I got energy.
You got energy.
That is it.
What do you do for fun? I saw you the other night. We were playing at Louisiana down the street, my band, and
Right.
and you were there. But what do you do for fun?
Me and my wife, every Saturday evening, we'll go eat, and after we eat, we got this little, I call it, it's this video poker machine. So we'll go and sit down over there at this place, it's Cash Magic, right by my house. And we'll sit down right there, just me and her, nobody else. we might put, $100 in the machine, and spend there, for several hours, drink a couple of beers or whatever, and just enjoy our private time together without no business interruptions or phone call. And to us, that's our kind of entertainment right now. But in the past, we would do fishing, and we had a fishing camp in Cocodrie that we'd like to go and visit. But now it was away from the water. We had to go by boat. Well, this past hurricane that we had last year, it took it away. It just blew it away, right there. So I don't know what we're going to do next. And I enjoy hunting. I do have a hunting camp up in Alabama. So me and my boys go up and do a lot of hunting during deer hunting season. And I like to duck hunt also. So I got property in Little Kaya that I'll still go duck hunting with
You're
my
a bayou
boys.
boy. You better learn.
Oh
how to
yeah,
hunt.
where it and it's to find free time. My wife hates to leave the house, so we don't go on vacations, much or anything, because of all the farm animals that's on the property, and we got dogs, and she don't want to impose on our children to take care of this and that. So she doesn't like to leave.
You got quail. You got ducks.
I got peacocks.
Pigs?
I got pigs. I got goats. I got cows. We got miniature goats, and we got, my gosh, the list goes on and on. Geese, and it just a lot. And my property is almost self-sustainable.
Yeah.
Right there that I have. I could live several years if it all went to hell in a handbasket just on what I have on my property right there.
You're a workaholic, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a truly admit to that. I love to work. Right there.
That's your joy.
That's it. It is. My children asked, Daddy, when you gonna retire? You old enough to retire? I said, as long as my eyes is going and I'm still at physical shape, I'm gonna continue to work. I'm not gonna just give up. On it. And I still got some other businesses that I'd like to crank up and get started. So hurricanes messed some of this stuff up, right there, but I'd like to get back into some of them,
You got a good Midas touch. There's no doubt about it.
One of the businesses I'd like to just touch on just vaguely is right before Hurricane Laura hit, Louisiana allowed hemp farmers to come in. Well, I was one of the first hemp farmers in Terrebonne Parish to grow hemp in Terrebonne Parish, and hemp is the low THC for meniscus purposes, right there. But that hurricanes, the salt water, the plants do not like salt water. They killed it like a frost. But at some point, I put a greenhouse on my property. At some point, I want to go back and just try to do that again. I still hold my license, to do that. So at some point after I get everything calculated, I'd like to do that.
Unfinished business.
That's right, unfinished business.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
What kind of music you listen to?
I love country music and old-time country music, classic music, and it's fun to listen to. I grew up with that music, and I still like it today.
Who's your favorite?
I like Luke Bryan, Tim McGraw.
Yeah.
I like Lainey Wilson even today, right
I know you like Faith Hill.
Yeah, Faith Hill, she's a good one too, But I listen to all of them, right there, all of them.
You just go with the flow.
That's it, I kind of go, and then, with my children, I have to listen to their age music also, right there. But, I don't really care for that music, but sometimes when I'm with them, I have to listen.
You got to bend a little bit.
That's right. You got to bend. You got to bend some there, Martin. But it's all been good, right there, and life's been good for me. It really has. It's been good for me and my wife Christine, and we've had a pleasure of raising all of our children. We had 7 children, now we have 8 grandchildren. And all my kids live on our compound, they call it. All but one of them. My last one, he decided he was going to move to Thibodeau instead. But all my grandkids.
Boy, he went far away to Thibodeau, huh?
Yeah. That's it. He was the youngest one, and I always told him, I said, Gage, I can't give you what I given the rest of them. I said, so when you get older, you can have this house in the property right there. Mom and Dad, we'll go build a little cabin but a pond in the back, and you can have. And one day he just come back and he said, I'm moving out this Saturday. And I said, well, what you did? He said, I went buy me a brand new house. And I said, well, you didn't come and ask me for anything and that. Oh, I don't need your help, Daddy. I got this, And he was but 20 years old, So he.
Well, look at you when you were 20.
That's exactly where I was going with it. He's got the same mindset of what I had, because he's going to go places too in his life, because he's got the drive and the energy, to do something.
He might be a chip off the old block.
Look, a lot of my friends, they say, well, Andrew, you don't ever have to worry when something happens to you or anything else. Your youngest son, Gage, he's just gonna come in and he'll probably control, the situation, right there.
Let me ask you this final question, because I had fun interviewing you. I wish we could talk for hours. Unfortunately, TV time had flied.
Right.
But if I went to Jerry Leday and I went to all the board at Progressive at the time, the one still living, if I went to your first wife, then your second wife, your kids, your friends, and I said, what's the one word y'all would use to describe Andrew? What would you hope they would say?
I would hope they'd say, look, he's an honest person. He treated us well, and we've done good behind him. I would hope at least over 50% would say that, about.
Can I refine that word and throw in, which encompasses a little more? I would use the word integrity.
Yes, that's the
because
the word.
You cover the whole gambit.
That's right. I covered the whole gambit on it, and I really don't have friends that hate me that I know of. We may have competition for friends, right there, but other than that, my friendship goes a long ways, with individuals in this parish and beyond.
So let me just close by telling everybody, when you go to the store, look for the Lanyap label and buy some products, because you're helping local people. And plus, it's a good product.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for coming today. Like we talked about, handshake is a bond, so let me shake your hand. You've been an asset to our community, and thank you so much.
That's it. I thank you for having us there, Martin, and hopefully we can go and do this again in the future, maybe 20, 30 years from now. I'm
going to interview you when you're 100 millionaire.
There you go.
Thank you,
Let's hope so. That's
I appreciate it.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. This one-on-one program has been brought to you by the law offices of Waits and Downer.